Let's talk about the Moog Subharmonicon. It's an instrument for musicians. And the reason that I say that is because it's not just a module. It's something that actually requires musical thought and musical ability to use. It's not going to do any of the writing for you. You know, there seems to be this idea that if you get a Subharmonicon, it will do some of the writing for you. It'll come up with the ideas for you. But that's not the way that it works. It all still has to come from up here. It comes from you. That's where the ideas come from. And the Subharmonicon will take those ideas and it'll mangle them and it'll remix them into something that is really cool and may not be something that you originally thought of, but it still comes with that same flavor that you put into it. So if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. And you really have to approach it like a musician. So the question is, how do you impose your will onto an instrument that has such a mind of its own? And that's what I'd like to cover in this video, is how I use the Subharmonicon to get my ideas out and develop them further. Also, if you find this video helpful, feel free to subscribe to the channel for more. Let's take a look at the oscillator section. Sorry about all these cables. I just didn't want to unpatch all this. So far, the easiest way that I found to tune the oscillators is just to set VCO 1 and 2 to the same note and set the sequence the sequence octave here to be plus or minus 1 and set the quantize to be the 12-tone equal tempered scale. So I set sub 1 and 2 on both of these to relatively friendly intervals from the root note. In this case, I set them to fifths. You can hear if I add in. Oh, that sounds like it's an octave. But they're simple intervals from the root note. And I've got sequence 1 going to oscillator 1 and sequence 2 affecting oscillator 2. So it's a super simple way of using this. Next, I slowly put in a sequence. So I'm going to start with just sequencer 1. So I'm going to turn off oscillator 2 completely. And I'm going to reset the sequence. And I'm just going to hit the trigger button. And here I've got this first one right in the middle. The first encoder there. So that's going to be our root note. And I'm going to do this. I would do this by singing. I've already set this actually, but what I would do is I go ba, ba, and I'd be like, okay, that note sounds good. So I'd hit next until it goes over to the next one, and then I get ba, and then I'd get the next one. Ba, and then so I get these 4 notes in here, and there'll be notes that I picked myself based off of how I wanted it to go. These are almost all chord tones with the exception of the 4th. So because I have the root here, the flat 3rd, the flat 7, and the 4th. So relatively friendly, simple intervals from these should be in key. So like we've got fifths and octaves, so those should all work. But the next step that you want to, so I can add in the other like subs and everything and it'll all still be in key. But next, what I want to do is add in VCO 2. And this is the part that can be difficult, and this is really where it's most important to sing, because you want to just play this sequence, play just sequence oscillator 1. I have this thing getting a reset signal from my clock divider every 2 bars. That's why it sounds like it's skipping back sometimes. So what you need to do here is you sing a harmony underneath this that goes with it. So you find notes that you like. So I just sang the first, the root, the fifth, and the fourth, and that's what I've punched in here as the notes that I want sequencer 2 to do. And because we did it while the sequence was playing, those notes go with every note of that sequence. So it doesn't really matter what the rhythm is that you have at that point. So you can just play with this rhythm knob and find something you like. So let's hear how it sounds. I'm going to turn in sub 2 on VCO2. Maybe pick a different rhythm. Maybe a little faster. So I like this. I think this is nice. And a lot of the reason that this works well is because I have these reset signals coming in every 2 bars. And the way that I did that was I just sent sequence 1 clock out into a 2 HP clock divider. And then I divided that by 16? Yes, by 16. And then I sent that to a pip slope in order to make it not a gated signal, but a trig. Then I sent that trigger into the reset of the Subharmonicon. So it resets itself every 2 bars, which is really helpful. I mean, you can also set it to reset itself every 1 bar, and that works too, or every 4 bars, but having a reset signal can really, really help. But you don't need more Eurorack modules to reset it because there's a reset button right there. You just push the button when you want it to reset. Push the button every 2 bars and it works. So let's hear what we have now. And we can try different sub levels. And you can mix them in like chords like this, but I actually don't really like that sound that much. What I prefer is to use these to make variations in the melody. So I'll turn this one down while I turn this one up. And then I have a new melody. And you've got so many of them. You really get a lot of options. And then, of course, adding in some delay is extremely helpful. So that's one way of doing it.